And you are exactly right, Java Man. I'm getting such much fun of our comments on a certain man and his love of cupcakes and his love of guitar making. We're having a silly discussion about that on one of my videos. Before I start and talk about my main topic, hola, I just want to talk about one thing real quick. I'm reading a book right now by Tina Brown on the royal family, and it has its girl please moments and a lot of gossip in it. But I enjoy her writing because she uses words I'm not familiar with. I'm writing them down and looking up definitions of things. But there was something in yesterday's that just gave me a charge. She was quoting the editor of one of the British national newspapers, who came up with a term I've not heard before that I'm going to say fits certain people we know. Churnalist, as in churning out fake content based upon the poorly researched content of others. So that is that horrible YouTuber moment of the day. And so now I'm going back, to what I really want to talk about today, which is weight loss. Everybody has asked me about this. Hey, Christine. Cleaning. Okay, everybody's asked me about this, and it's kind of ironic that it's happening now because I'm having issues with my stomach, and so I'm unintentionally lost a few pounds as a result because I don't know when to eat, I don't know when not to eat. It's just crazy. So anyway, long story short, my years in quiverful fundamentalist evangelicalism, one thing is for sure: men are never ever talked to about their bodies, never. But every woman's body is open season for every man out there in these types of religions, the CULT churches. Every man feels like they have the right to tell you what you can do with your body, and that includes weight loss or weight gain or whatever. One of the things that was pretty obvious to me after not very long in our old church was that it is bogus, is that your weight is everybody else's concern. I told my husband, Churnalist, yeah, they do. My husband and I, we are not skinny people now, but we're older. I mean, it happens when you get older. Your metabolism does crazy things. Your stomach does crazy things. Meds do crazy things. I'm just going to throw that one out there. I'm not speaking as a fashion plate icon or anything remotely like that. But I told my husband before I married him, I said, I've been a size 2, I've been a size 22, and I've been everything in between. I told him before I married him, you're going to have to accept the fact that there will be times when I probably am not model thin. And he was pretty cool about it. Most men are not, but like I said, I threw all my bona fides on the table before I got married this time, and it worked out much better for me. But joining the church, at first I didn't see it. But after a while, I got to see the pastor coming up to friends of mine, fabulous friends of mine who were maybe a little bit fluffy or a lot fluffy. I don't like to use the fat word. I will use the fluffy word every time because I don't like to blame anybody for their body. Your body is your body is your body is your body is your body. And how you got there can be for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's genetic. Sometimes it's just a season you're going through, all the different things you're doing, the things that are happening to you, meds you're on. There's so many different reasons why you may not be model thin. That type of religion never takes that into account at all. It's one size fits all yet again, theology and everywhere else. Maybe they should focus on fathers, brothers, uncles, grandfathers, pastors. Yeah, exactly. They should, Steve McRae, manager. They should. Angela, I'm just having some stomach issues now, and it's kind of ironic that I'm talking about this because I've probably lost 5 or 6 pounds recently without attempting to. So at first, it wasn't so over it. At least it wasn't over it that I saw. It was more, I started watching the pastor sliding up next to my friends who were a little fluffy, a lot fluffy, and saying, well, Gold's Gym just opened in town and they're having a $5 special. You should join. You should join. It would do you some real good. And sometimes he would even address you individually and tell you that you were sinful by not having a perfect body, by not maintaining the temple that God had given you, that this was sin and that you had to be a perfect vessel inside and out. So there was a lot of that. And then I joined worship team. Oh Lord. Worship team is where the fat shaming really got weird. It's said in the contracts, and I signed like a 7-page contract when I joined worship team. You signed it every year. And one of the things it says on there is that they reserve the right to weigh you. Now, fortunately, I never saw many weigh-ins. They didn't weigh as much. It was something that was more of a threat they held over your head. And there was an entire section of the contract that said that you were required to present as you were required to constantly be working on your appearance and your weight, and that it was preferred if you could meet certain weight standards. Well, it was pretty funny because some of us on the team were rather fluffy. And I've seen pictures now of that pastor who tortured us all to be fluffy and not to be fluffy, and he is quite fluffy. He looks like he's smuggling a beach ball under his shirt now. And I feel like interviewing him again and asking him what that was all about, if he still feels the same way. But I know it would just be the same old BS, even though he and I have always had a good relationship even after I left. And he would be open to that, I'm sure. I know him well enough for that, but I know what the answers would be. He is definitely a hypocrite. Even though now that he's a little large, I want to know if he's still the same level of hypocrite. I remember his second wife and even his first wife and all the things they did to stay thin. It was pretty extreme. I had friends at my old church that had obvious eating disorders. I'm probably going to get slapped by YouTube for saying the word ED. Bad ones. The only judge is God. That's exactly right. But a lot of these men in these religions, these type of religions, they think that they have to be God Jr. is the best I can put it. Look at Ken Hovind, who has a history of being abusive. Yes, exactly the same kind of guy. And they really pushed and promoted it hard, weight loss at my old church. I had friends, like I said, that had EDs. One girlfriend I was really close with, we traveled together one summer, and that was when I finally figured out she had an ED. She had bulimia very badly, and we would go out to eat breakfast, and I would have a small plate of a few things because my metabolism has always been slow. And she would have 3 or 4 plates of pancakes and all kinds of stuff, and then would disappear in the bathroom for a half hour. The first time I walked in and smelled the stench of vomit and heard her retching, I knew what was going on. I knew why she was a size 2 at that point, and that's just tragic. It's quite tragic. Before I married my husband, when I was a size 2 myself at times, I'd actually done a little modeling, and I can't tell you the pressure about your body in that. I never felt comfortable with doing it. I only did it a handful of times. I worked as a presenter at a number of trade shows. There was just so much emphasis on your body that it was ridiculous. So for me, it was a no-go. It was, I desperately need the money, so I will do this. The pressure is unreal. You are exactly right, that Amber chick. Like, lick lettuce leaves and crunch on ice cubes for days. And I can never live like that. I'm Cajun. I love food. I love to cook. I love to eat. And as you can see, as ample, you take over turning the letters from Ben White. Java man in those days, I could have the smiling, not now. We had a huge scandal here in Australia a few years ago about women coming out talking about being abused in religious sex by their church and their husbands. Oh, yeah. I'll have to take a look at that, into that, and see if I can pull that up. So here we had way in the worship team sometimes. We had this extreme pressure. And then into that, they decided to bring Gwen Shamblin, creator of the Way Down Workshop. Now, looking back upon it, one of the things I don't like about the Way Down Workshop is the constant, you're a sinner, you're a sinner, you're a sinner, you're a horrible sinner, you're just a beast in filthy rags that could never qualify to be righteous enough to be around God, except with God's mercy. I think that is almost setting you up for failure and weight loss and everything else. That's not to say there weren't some useful things in the program. When I joined the program, I lost like 30, 35 pounds pretty easily just by putting into place a lot of the things that Gwen talked about that I use to this day. And there's some useful things in the program. I took the program and then I started being a coordinator for our church for the program. That actually raises an interesting point. The GOP keeps on going on and on about pedos. The problem is, what about that which occurs in the religious groups? You got a point? So Way Down Workshop, it had its good points. It also had its CULT bad points. And once Gwen started a new church and denied the Trinity, our pastor came to me and said I had to quit teaching it. Well, I had already decided to approach him anyway and say, hey, can we put this thing on hiatus for 6 months or a year? Because it was the same 6 people each year, each session signing up for it, that had never lost pound one on the program. All they did was run their yaps about their problematic personal lives. So I could see it was taking the place of therapy for them, and they should have been in some kind of therapy, all of them. And likely, if they had dealt with their life issues, maybe it would have affected their body image and their weight and God knows what all else. So if you've seen the HBO series The Way Down, and it took me a long time to watch it because I had some trauma I didn't even realize I still had until Gwen died, and I started going through my own cycle of grief for her, even though it had been years since I even thought of her. It was just some of the things that are coming out from her church about you better lose weight or else. It's straight out of some of what I experienced, what I've heard a million times from women who've experienced it, who've talked about it and no longer quivering, or they've reached out to me personally and been talking about this weight loss thing. And the weight loss thing, like I said, it was so wicked because it opens the door for men to body for everything under the sun. The way you dress, the way you don't dress, if you do your hair right, if you have the right kind of hair, if you're wearing makeup, if you're not wearing makeup. The message always seemed to be, look perfect on the outside, be attractive, but not too attractive. And then you'll be a proper holder of the image of God. Well, I got news for anybody that thinks that's the way. There is nothing in the Bible to indicate anybody's weight, their hair, anything else beyond the ravings of Paul in a book written well after Jesus. So I don't think any of that matters. And what the Bible is, it's basically a snapshot of that time in world history more than anything else, I believe. I don't know how any of this fits in with with God, but how can you get away with judging other people and their bodies? I don't like to judge anybody by their appearance because, and I feel uncomfortable with this. We're talking about that YouTuber, even though I have said things about her, because we're walking around our meat suits. Who am I to say your meat suit's not right? So it surprises people when I tell them the Bible permits slavery. Yes, it does. That's what I mean when I say there are parts of the Bible are just awful that fit with that time frame and that culture, but have nothing to do with us. So the pressure at my church was so bad, I went on Meridia. Now, if you don't know what Meridia is, it was a drug that was on the market for not a whole long length of years. It was what came after fen-phen, which so many people took and ended up with pulmonary hypertension that killed them. Meridia had some issues too. I was on it for 5.5 months and I lost 75 pounds on it. 75 pounds. I just melted away. And I kept a fair amount of that off for some years, unlike 98% of the people who took Meridia that lost weight and immediately gained it right back and then more. And I've never gone above my highest since, but it's been up and down. I would have never have tried a dangerous, untested drug, not tested enough, if it had not been for the pretty extreme pressure in my church to be skinny. Preached from the pulpit, from everybody else. All the men there think they can tell you everything about yourself, like I said, your appearance. I learned after a while to let that go in one ear and straight out the other, because a lot of it was ridiculous. Like the time the guy told me that my loose cotton jumper with pumpkins on it was demonic. Now, it wasn't jack-o'-lanterns. It was just pumpkins, orange pumpkins with a little golden glow, and they were beautiful. They didn't have anything to do with Halloween. Dieting is never a long-term solution. You are exactly right, and that's what I have learned. You just have to kind of try to eat healthy and exercise, and guess what? You don't worry. You take the body you've been given. My body keeps going back to the same set point that was my great-grandmother's, who I happen to resemble. I resemble her closer than I do anybody else in my family, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because she lived to be 104. And she lived to be 104 without being a stick. I'm just going to tell you like it was. And probably the last 20 years of her life, she was less mobile than I am after my stroke. So I'm going to take that to mean I have some years left to be kicking. And even though I'm at over 60 now. So it would be weird to have another 40 years. I think about that and just kind of laugh. It's like, I'm already an old crone. What happens when I get that old? But nobody at her Catholic church ever gave her crap about her weight that I know of. So I'm going to say that. Some churches are better at that than others, but don't use a makeup brush that has fallen to the floor and the dog licks it without cleaning it. That is just gross and unhygienic. I was just talking about not that, but other stuff with my husband right before I got on this video. I actually told him about the time that she had to use the bathroom and she left the door open and then she didn't wash her hands because that kind of grossed me out, and said, yeah, no. People need to have a healthy relationship with the food they eat instead of falling into disordered eating. And Fernando, that's harder than you would think for some of us. I grew up in a Cajun culture where food is love. You love somebody, you feed them. And I'm still that way today. I feed people, and I did that back in the States too. Yeah, Jaffa man, I don't get that. If I was having them kind of issues going on, I would not be doing that. I would end the stream before I would do that. That's just crazy. And that's me saying that you can overwash your hands too, because I had that problem at the beginning of the pandemic. You remember telling us, wash your hands. I'd wash my hands so much, my hands and skin died, and they turned red, and it was flaky and horrible. And that was a mess. That is what screws people up. Fernando, this thinking that you can't have anything, that also screws people up. I have had to fight against that myself. And I find I do better if I allow myself to have small measures of the things I really like that are unhealthy occasionally. Like we have these little tiny ice cream sandwiches. They're about that big and they're like 30 cents. I'll have one of those sometimes in the evening after dinner. And I read labels. I read labels. I buy the stuff with the biggest amount of fiber because I've learned with having had blood sugar issues a few times that if you can take your fiber and you can X the amount of carbs or sugar, that's your true number. Well, I eat cereal now that the fiber number is way higher than the carb number, which means it's like negative carbs on me. So you really have to, oh God, please no, leave my ice cream sandwiches alone, Toad. You really have to look at those things and you have to completely change in here too, because the way I was raised, vegetables are fried always. Yeah, Cajuns have some very unhealthy eating habits and they think it's normal. And it took me a long time to overcome that. And I'm not perfect at it. I think I've had fried shrimp every day this week just because I happened to hit a bargain on it and it was such a treat. Yeah, Nick Ocado, Avocado, and Amberlynn Reed on the internet promoting unhealthy eating and making money from it. People get their role models screwed up. Yeah, I think that's more of a freak show. People look at that as a freak show or to justify what they're doing. I have a really close friend in the States that I went to church with, then still my friend now. She's like the only one. Her and I have struggled with the blood sugar thing for a long, long time, both of us. And I've finally gotten myself figured out and straightened out, courtesy of UVA and their wonderful endocrinology staff there. I can do it in my sleep now. I know, hey, if I'm going to have this, I need to have a salad with the meal and a huge chunk of protein. You figure out how your body works for you and you go with it. And that I think is the takeaway that these CULT churches do not do. They don't make sure, it's really not their role to make sure that if you understand nutrition or not. But if you're going to fat shame people, you have to at least, if you are an organization, you're going to fat shame people, you really need to make sure the people you're fat shaming understand nutrition, they understand how their body works, the whole 9 yards. When I first went on metformin, and I'm on a tiny regulatory dose every day, I did lose some weight at first. Pandemic has put 20 pounds on me, and I'm not the only one. And I have to work on that now. Hey, Tracy. Java Man, I can't watch any of those what I call bulk eaters. I just can't. It's just too gross. And even if they have something like if Dr. Phil has a show where he has people who are extremely overweight or whatever on there and they're showing what they eat in a day, I just get so grossed out. In fact, I always say that when I'm actively trying to not eat as much and lose a little weight by substituting more vegetables, anything else, having salad galore with my meals, and cutting everything back that's unhealthy for you, that if I really am starting to flip out, that's interesting. I'll have to take a look at that one too. If I'm really starting to flip out and go, I'm going to die if I don't have a donut or whatever, because your body will call for this. If you're used to it, your body will call for it. Oh my goodness, Java Man, that's crazy. If your body is calling for it, you have to figure out a way to turn that call off. For me, I know this is going to sound horrible, but there is a episode of Here Comes Honey Boo Boo where the family is cooked for Thanksgiving. That if I need to turn off that desire for nasty, bad for you food, I'll watch that episode and I'll be watching it gagging. So stuff like the whole family dipping their hands in that faux butter they use and slathering it on the turkey and throwing it in the vegetables, taking the cans of cranberry sauce and pouring sugar into it, pouring sugar into the vegetables. I'm just like, I can't handle it. Sugar, Mountain Dew, you're right. And it was like, no, they had so many gross things that's my go-to. When I start feeling that way, I'm like, I got to watch this and turn my brain off. So the whole time I was there, I had extreme, extreme guilt about not being model thin, not being a size 2 again. the entire time, and nothing I did seemed like a permanent solution. Joining the gym and exercising excessively only worked for a while. Extreme dieting only worked for a while. At one point, the pastor called for like a 40-day fast. And the only thing that happened was my blood sugar got out of whack and I started throwing up. I can't do those extreme fasts. I just can't. And it was pretty obvious that no one up there had a healthy view of food. There was a lot of unhealthy food things going on. Point. Yeah, you do. You do. Sketty and margarine and ketchup. Yeah, I watched that, Tracy. I was like, oh my God, they're putting that in their mouths. Oh no. Diet caffeine free Coke. Well, I have the Diet Coke with the caffeine in it because I need the caffeine to stay awake. I've had a registered dietitian overlooking me for the past few years. We have established I eat healthy foods, just go too large in the portions to the level of activity I get up to. Fernando, that's kind of where I have been with this. I've gone through the registered dietitian, I've done all that. And right now, it's all about staying healthy. It's not about becoming a size 2 again. It's about none of that. It is just being healthy. I have to throw off the COVID 20 pounds because that was a lot of unhealthy eating as we were going through the nerviness of this awful time. And I know I'm not the only one. So we're one. So we're out drink water. Oh, Java man, that's a great piece of advice, but I struggle with that one. You have to realize I grew up in South Louisiana where we didn't have good water and water was for animals. We sometimes would drink bottled water, and I have no problem with bottled water, but water out of the tap, I still cringe when I pour that. It's like, oh, my body just thinks it's poison because you couldn't drink the water out of the tap in New Orleans, believe it or not. You could not. It was not healthy. Tracy, that's awesome. I'm on a maintenance dose of the lowest dose of metformin you can be on, pretty much. And I've been able to maintain no problem. Sadly, my girlfriend, that we came with the same numbers around the same time and both started trying to figure out how to fix this. She resisted taking metformin. She resisted going on, doing the things you have to do where you look at the fiber and you minus out block. She didn't do that as well as some of us did, and she's now on insulin. She refused to take metformin. I've gotten better to the point where my metformin dose is almost non-existent. I could probably get off of it. If I lost a little weight, I'm sure I could. So it's way better to handle it that way than it is to just go off the deep end. Yeah, the last 2 years, I think, has affected many people when it comes to weight, especially not being able to get out of the house and go for a long walk, which I enjoy. I always order water when I'm in a restaurant. I'm an oddball. My husband does the same thing, Java man. I don't always do that. I sometimes will order I usually will order either a tonic water or some type of bubbly water. It's just where my brain goes every time with that. I love my bubble water, even if it's extremely bougie. Also, it has raised people's blood pressure. Um, yeah, it has. And that is really an odd one. And I think that has to be a combination of factors and not just because of weight. I think that the low level anxiety and dread most of us have felt during the pandemic is translating into these numbers, higher weight, the more blood pressure numbers, all of that. I think that's what's going on. Oh, Fernando, I used to have a soda stream. Here it would be a fool's mission because you can't get the CO2 cartridges. So I buy the bubble water by the case in the cans for here because that's what I have to drink. Once I drink my one daily Diet Coke, I'm done. And it's all bubble water after that point, or regular water. So they have it all wrong. in the churches, and the pressure can be so extreme. You end up with problems like my friend Kathy, where she had the ED. I mean, really bad, and she wasn't the only one. I knew others up there that also were struggling with EDs. Hers was just more obvious after we traveled together. There was no way for her to disguise that she had those problems. Fernando, that's awesome that you could leave a stressful job to lower your blood pressure, because there are definitely going to be those jobs out there that are stressful. One of the things that I thought was interesting recently is I watched the film Spencer, starring, I can't even remember her name. That shows you how few I keep up with Hollywood. I don't. I like independent film mostly. I watch a pile of crazy independent film documentaries, but I don't watch much in the popular pantheon. I just don't. It just doesn't appeal to me. One glass. That's exactly right. Well, they taking over the role of God or ascribing things to God, I think, is the problem more than the actual notion of God. Um, so Spencer was all about one Christmas weekend up at the royal family's Christmas vacation they had every year in Sandringham, I think is the name of the castle they were in. And we got to see the reality of her struggling with the bulimia, and it was pretty intense. The movie I thought was silly. I didn't like it. But that part I found absolutely just riveting because of watching my friend that had problems, that had bulimia and denied it. Because I tried to talk to her about it during and after this trip, and she just shut me out of her life. And she was someone that didn't believe in any medical treatment whatsoever, to the point where she ignored all the symptoms and signs until she was having such a severe headache. She ended up in the ER, and they said, you only have two weeks to live. You have massive uterine cancer all over your body. Oh, yeah. Don't blame God. Blame how these people treat God. And yeah, mortal problems like health issues, etc. Exactly. And they blame all of that on Satan. I wash my hands to keep away from Satan. Uh, so they blame all of that, like children, on magic solutions, magic this, magic that. And that's basically what they're doing. They're leaning on a magical understanding instead of a rational understanding. I just changed shifts, minimize contact with stressful coworkers. Karma, you got to do that sometimes. I was ranting last night because if you know me, you know my daughter is getting married in June. And there has been drama, not from us, not involving us, but with various family members that we weren't going to invite in the first place because they are drama, demanding an invitation. And we didn't want to invite them, but we didn't want to say, hey, we're not inviting you because you bring the total wrong energy and you bring the drama. We didn't want to say that to the family members involved. So we went ahead and invited them. I didn't want to do it. My daughter didn't want to do it, but hey. And then they turned around and sent a sorry we can't be there note. And I was like, what was the purpose of you wanting that invitation so badly? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But so you have to not let those things, the stressful things in life, get to you. And they sort of got to me a little bit there. I don't know, Tracy. They're not close. We're not close to them at all. So I was really surprised. Todd Chrisley was getting on KJ for blaming God for her son's ills. Personally, I think that God is used to people being mad at him. This is nothing new. Java Man, I don't think it bothers him at all. He expects that. He expects us to be on that journey. I was talking to Steve McRae about this. He expects us to be all over the spectrum on our days. We're pissed at him, whatever. And He's not surprised by that. I believe that very strongly. There's nothing new under the sun, as King Solomon said, and there really isn't. So to hear things being blamed on God, I'm just kind of like, they just like to be asked, did they have you blocked on Facebook? Java Man, yes. In fact, I think the only reason they found out about it is I discovered that this person had a Facebook profile that had friended me that I had no idea who it was. She's got a live child. She should be grateful. Exactly, Tracy. And I've said before, that was why I started talking to her, was the whole issue with the child having chronic illnesses, having been through that myself. It was something we kind of bonded over. And she was just so weird about it. I'm just going to throw it out there, but I didn't know the extent of it until recently. I have to agree with Julie Chrisley. When you have a child like that, I know for me, it was all I could do not to be by her side 24/7. I had to make myself try to behave normally after a while. I had to make myself say, okay, I'm going to have the most normal life for my child as possible. And I went way out of my way to make that happen. And I was on call 24/7. There were no drinking binges. There were none of that. And I probably did hover over her a little too much. Tracy, truthfully, we didn't invite many people because it's kind of a small wedding. It's intimate. There's a few friends and a few family. We just didn't want to have to host everybody and their brother at like $120 a plate at the catering place. So it was like, that was not going to happen. We just didn't invite that many. Christy, I started to watch it, but I just haven't, I've run out of time. I'm going to lay in that bed here very shortly. I may just put it on and start listening then. But Julie Chrisley's point about hovering over that child and being at their side is very, very, very appropriate. And believe me, she hid it for 2 years before I found out. She was naturally slim, hard disease to understand, but very real and scary. It absolutely is. It is. God, the infinite being can certainly handle KJ cussing him out. Yeah, he's probably going, yeah, I saw that coming. But exactly why she is, there's some things that she said about her child that just blowed my mind, like being upset over his birthday and Mother's Day. Just, I don't understand that at all. I can never comprehend that. A lot of people have children with chronic illnesses. Sweetheart, that doesn't make you that special. It just makes you join a club that I wish nobody had to join. And most of us don't handle it the way she has. And I got criticized in the church for the way I handled mine. I had people that came up to me and said, you and your child are way too invested in each other. Every time I see you, you and her are arm in arm and you're hugging each other all the time. That's not healthy. Yeah, I got that quite a bit. And along with, you should be spanking your child. She is way too clingy onto you. Christine, I hear you on that. And that's just not right. You shouldn't put those kind of labels on anyone because they hear that and they grow up thinking that. I went out of my way to try not put labels on my daughter and say what she could and could not do. And she did a lot of things that for me were out there. One of them was she went to Romania for 2 months and she still had issues going on. And that was a real leap of faith for me. She went to Romania to help out with the orphanages and the orphans. And I had to send her with a ton of prescription drugs. I had to let the mission organization know, if this happens, this needs to happen. If this happens, this. It was a step of faith for me to even be able to do that. And this is a child that wanted to travel internationally and go every which way and actually ended up doing a lot of that. But it required me being able to let go of her, not limiting her and saying, oh, no, honey, you got to stay home. Like I was Dee Dee Blanchard over Gypsy Rose Blanchard. you really have to take a step out because there are big advantages. I think that's the thing that she's missing is that you really have to take the opportunities where you can to allow your child to have a normal life so that they don't feel their entire life just revolves around hospitals, doctors, medicines. My daughter was fine, but she was always with me till high school. Tracy, there's nothing wrong with that either. I just had one with itchy feet that wanted to travel real bad and wanted to go every which way and did. She ended up going to Romania, to Poland, to Germany, to London. In fact, I was reading the book on the royal family with Christine Brown. Not Christine Brown. What's that girl's name? The writer Tina Brown. It was a Brown, at least. And she was talking about July 7th, 2005. And that day, my daughter was actually in London. And I was freaking out for not being able to hear from her because I didn't know if she was on those buses where the terrorist activity took place. I didn't know. Gypsy Rose is of nightmares, absolutely. And the mother exploited the fact that Hurricane Katrina destroyed all the records in Louisiana and used as much money as she could get. For me, the horrific thing about that was when the law enforcement went in there and they opened the cabinet and there were hundreds of prescriptions in there. To me, that was just like, and that was with me having all kinds of prescriptions for my daughter, preventative this and that and the other stuff. And it's just hard. And I understand how you might even get to that state when you're so protective of your child that you don't want your child to go out and do anything, but that's no life of the child. And just like all those fundamentalist evangelical types that are trying to put you in a box about your weight and telling you this and that and the other thing, when you do that to your child for their health, you're really doing them a serious disservice because your job as a parent is to raise them to take a proper place in society, to be a help to everybody, to do what they were meant to do. That is your entire purpose when you have children. Raise them to be decent people. That's it. Everything else is negotiable, but you have to raise them to be decent people. If Hurricane Katrina destroyed the birth certificates and KJ cannot access them, she is going to think that all of them are in the mafia. I don't know how much Katrina destroyed birth certificates and things. I haven't had to get a birth certificate copy since before Katrina, and I'm getting ready to have to request some records from Louisiana. I tried to get them last time I was down there, but Vital Records in New Orleans had not opened back up again, which was too bad because I need to start all over again to become a resident. I need to get my different documents with the stamp on the back, the apostille. They have to have official translations, all of that. I got to start at zero again. So I don't know. Pentecostals believe that ill children are God's judgment of the parents. It's really horrible. Yes, they do. They do believe that. And I've been told that too. And I'm like, no, I reject that. I reject that. That's another thing that's really huge in these kind of outlier churches is the thought. Reject that. That's another thing that's really huge in these kind of outlier churches is the thought of generational curses. I don't know if you've heard of generational curses, but they look at this stuff and say it just comes down through the generations and it's God's punishment for something somebody did years and years and hundreds of years before. Yeah, the hospitals were pretty much trashed in the New Orleans area. I found that out when I tried to get a record of something that I'd had done to my daughter at Oshner's years before, and it was just gone. So these generational curses, the way they work is like, I'm going to use myself as an example. I have real bad asthma. I have an aunt that has real bad asthma. My father had other relatives in his family down through the generations that had really bad asthma, and most of them did not live very long lives, like 30, 35, and that was it. Most of the time, these churches that believe this stuff, they would believe that that is caused by a generational curse and that you would have to repent for whatever it was your ancestor did that caused this curse to happen. and this thing to go on your family, and you repent from it. You walk through these steps of deliverance and repentance and claim your healing in Jesus. And then you're healed, they think. Now, the problem comes in when you have more asthma and you're told you have to deny it. You have to deny the symptoms, not take medicines. You just have to say, by Jesus' stripes, I am healed. And the devil has no more right to put this on me because I have repented for my ancestors. That's really how they believe it works. Sadly, because we live in a broken, fallen world where things are not perfect, I don't think we can say that these things are demons or spirits. I have generational issues. I don't blame God for bad decisions. Tracy, I don't either. I like to talk about my Cajun family. They're a big bunch of drinkers. There's a whole lot of functional alcoholics in that family. I am not one. I'm pretty much the teetotaler because of my drugs. But even before that, I didn't drink a whole lot because I saw the consequences of that, and I never wanted to put that on another person. The reading comprehension, I think, is also affected by possibly whatever mind-altering substances are going on there. Yeah. Jaffa Man, maybe. I can't do inhalers. I'm actually allergic to the propellant, so I have to do the nebulizer instead. I put it on my nebulizer. I'll write it and stick the sticker on there and go. But I really don't like. I don't need a vaccine. I have Jesus Christ. I don't like them either. And quite frankly, we have them here too. And here it's actually illegal. If they find out you're not vaccinating your kids and you're an American, they will threaten to take your children away to CPS or give you the option to immediately vaccinate them or get on the plane and you're kicked out. I've seen that happen too. They don't call New Orleans a big easy for nothing. Well, and it's not always easy there. That's what's so silly about everything. I went back to New Orleans when they first reopened the states for travel, and stayed in my favorite hotel there, which had slipped a lot during COVID and hadn't been maintained, and there was a lot of things wrong with my room. It was an interesting experience. I've never seen New Orleans with such little traffic and so few people out and about. I will say that we went to Lafayette Park a number of times, and there were a lot of people who had gotten out. They were just sick and tired of being in their rooms and their houses, and they were coming out to walk around the park. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Teddy, you're right, and not judgment. And I got a fair amount of judgment for that in my old church. And there were times that I did that stupid thing and did away with the medicines. And the only thing is I made myself a whole lot sicker. I mean, a whole lot sicker. So I've learned my lesson. In fact, in the last year, I found myself much more quick to medicate than I ever have been before. Screw the cost of the medicine. I'm just going to do it. Java Man, that's a good response. A lot of times what I'll do is I run across them on Facebook. I have one of those Facebook thumbs up signs. It says, COVID likes this. And I will sometimes post that because for the life of me, I can't understand how anybody could think so evilly of vaccines. That was one thing that YouTuber and I had in common, is we were both pretty pro-vax because of having had children with all these illnesses. And even myself as an adult, I've had whooping cough a pile of times, and I've been revaccinated for it a pile of times now too. It just happens. And sometimes we even need to be revaccinated for some of these things. So, and the thing is, I did have a bad reaction to a vaccine one time. I got the first shingles vaccine, the first one that came out. And I had an anaphylactic episode where my blood pressure went in my shoes. Every time I stood up, I passed out. Heart rate just zoomed through the ceiling. It was just crazy, and in the hospital. But I would still get vaccinated tomorrow if they came up with a vaccine for whatever that I needed it for. I've been told I should not have the shingles vaccine. I haven't had shingles since getting that one dose. So I'm going to think that that's probably okay. It probably worked. I suffer from environmental asthma. The bushfires a couple of years ago made it very hard for me to breathe. And if you're in Australia, I keep reading about thunder asthma there. And it's like, oh my goodness, another way to kill you off. You have my sympathies on that because I am infected. Infected. I am affected by environment too. I was freaking out about the brush fires we were getting here. It came about a half a mile from the house. And I was spending 100% of my time here in my master bedroom suite because it's sealed and cleaned and perfect. And the AC is the newest one with the HEPA filter on it. So when I'm having those times, I'm in here. And it's bad. May COVID be with you, response, and also with you. Yeah, it is kind of that way. And I know thunder asthma is incredibly dangerous. The church we were going to here, Tamarindo Church, when they ran off the pastor, Lyle Watson, who's a wonderful individual I cannot say enough good things about, they put in a guy that's anti-vax. He's anti-vax. He doesn't think COVID is a thing. He thinks that COVID is made up, that it's not that bad. And so the entire church is that way now. And I cannot tell you how happy I am that we left. Once I heard that, got my kid an HPV vax. 10 years later, mom thinking about that bad. No, gave her everything. Tracy, amen. So there is that. So they've gone very anti-vax there. And they're COVID denying. They don't wear masks, none of that. Which is kind of ironic because I left over the issues of me reacting to a dog and asking them not to allow the dog in the church because Lyle Watson had seen me have a reaction to a fuzzy dog, had seen me damn near die, and made it a rule that you just could not bring your dog in there. You could leave your dog outside, but do not bring it into the actual sealed building. So when they threw that rule out for me, it was like, yeah, you don't care about people. You just care about your stupid ideology. I'm going on down the road. Had 2 CVAC boosters, 1 booster, and still got it. Well, it happens, Tracy. That's the sad thing. That's the sad thing. And it's people who are anti-masking and anti-doing anything that's proper and scientifically based. They're spreading this crap. Here we have a lot of people who don't believe in it. We have a lot of tourists that pile in. There are now no COVID restrictions at all put on any tourists. So they're bringing it, they're spreading it. And I stay home, except for my one night a week at the beach bar. There are many people who thought that about COVID. They're no longer with us. Many of them wanted the vaccine on their deathbeds. Some of them were carrying COVID with their dying breath, denying COVID with their dying breath. Java man, I saw that, and that was kind of scary. I haven't been boosted yet either, Brittany. I didn't even get vaccinated until last July because here they weren't vaccinating anybody that wasn't a resident for a long, long time. Now they're doing anybody that walks in the clinic. And what happened was I got vaccinated in July. They say with the vaccine that I got that you have to wait 6 months to get boosted. Well, 6 months would have been what, January, February? I got real sick in that time frame with asthma reacting to volcanic ash because we had a pretty bad explosion here. And then I went into this whole bladder infection that turned into a kidney infection thing that I've just been cleared from recently. So I couldn't get vaxxed for any of that reason. So now I'm actually eligible to be vaxxed. I think I'm going to go and get the booster soon, but I haven't. You're making sure your kids get it. Good. Thunder asthma is triggered by a combination of grass pollen in the air and certain thunderstorm conditions. Yeah, look it up. It's really crazy. It's the craziest thing I've seen. Java man, I don't know what any of the status of this stuff is in the States. I'm going to have to look it up because I'm going back too in the States. I may just wait and get boosted there. Many vaccines do not stop you getting the infection. It lessens the severity of it. Yeah, well, there's that, and that's not a bad thing. I bet you did, Tracy. I would have gotten vaxxed immediately if I was in the States. But since I was actually in the States the week they approved Johnson and Johnson and started giving it to people, which my lung doctor had already told me was the one I was going to have to take. And I went around and begged and everything. And because I didn't have a valid Louisiana driver's license, they would not give it to me. Oh my goodness. Your dad is lucky to be alive, that Amber chick, because polio, what I've seen of the from the past, it was wicked. Daniel, I don't either. Danielle, I have no idea how they're thinking this. I have no idea because we're seeing people that we love left and right drop dead of this. I think it was interesting that I've seen several articles from the NIH and some of the research facilities that are saying that severe asthmatics and people with mast cell and a few other disorders are not getting COVID in the numbers that everybody else is. And I have to think that's because of our maintenance drugs and other stuff we're taking. There's something they haven't quite figured out yet. I've been exposed at least 6 times that I know of here. And I don't mean standing 6 feet away from somebody with a mask on. I mean exposed, including like this close to somebody. And I haven't gotten it. And I don't know how that is. I don't know what that even looks like, but I'm just like thanking God that has not happened. Oh yeah, I saw that Java ban about the person still being on the iron lung. It's just crazy. There are still people who think that HIV is made up. Yeah, I know. And I know people like that too. And I'm just like, well, your brains. COVID deniers are trapped in conspiratorial thinking. Yes, they are. It's so sad with some of these people. And the thing that is really, really horrible, and I talked to somebody recently that I ran into that had COVID and they had long COVID. They had bad long COVID. And I started trying to talk to them about asking their doctor about trying some of the drugs that mast cell sufferers take because they're thinking that long COVID, it's kind of like mast cell. It has some things in common with it. So it's not unheard of to do that. And he just blew me off with well, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to wait it out. Like, okay, Darth Vader, Superman, whatever you think you are. Yeah, I always thought that too, Java Man. I don't know about Darth Vader and his suit. It could have been a portable iron lung. He fell once when I was little in the front yard. He went to work and fainted. Come to find out, he'd broken his leg, and because of the nerve damage, he didn't know it until he fainted from shock. I can see that happening after having had a thalamic stroke where I don't have a lot of feeling in my left side. I have had issues where I didn't exactly feel what was going on, and I didn't take proper care. It just happens, and it's sad, because if you don't have the nerves to feel anything, you're right. Long COVID is scary. So I was trying to encourage this guy to at least talk to the doctor to see if they could do this stuff. Oh, Carmarlu, that is terrible. I just cannot imagine what that must have been like. So, and it was kind of interesting. Interesting side note to my hospital visit for the bladder kidney infection thing. Before I went, I'd been going to my doctor and they'd been trying to determine what was going on with me because I was having no symptoms of anything but this super high fever. Um, and they think I didn't feel anything because of the nerve damage. They really think that's what was going on. One of the first things they did was test me for COVID, the quick tests, the PCR, the whole 9 yards. And the day they transferred me by ambulance to the hospital, they had my 12-hour ago negative PCR test with them and showed it to the ER. And the ER only agreed to take me because I'd been tested recently for COVID and been negative. The second I got there, I'm being given a chest X-ray, and I said, "Now wait a minute here. I had a chest X-ray 12 hours ago. They brought you the x-ray, I saw them hand it off and said, no, we need a new one. So they took a chest x-ray. They immediately told me I had COVID. I was like, how can that even be? I've been cleared by the other place. So they rushed another PCR, and they did a scan from my lungs down, a CT scan, and they came back and said, well, you had COVID 2 hours ago. You no longer have COVID. Your body fought it off. And I was like, look, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. I never had COVID. You guys were just jumping the gun so you could try and transfer me down to San Jose to the COVID hospital and not have to deal with my ass. I knew what was going on, but they were just like, oh, rah, rah, rah. That Ember chick, same. We got hit hard here, and it was right. It was ignorance. It's all these people that are believing conspiracy theories, that are refusing to get vaccinated, refusing to socially distance, refusing all of that. And they're not having any part of that. Dad was begging his friends to take the COVID vaccine when it came out. Sadly, a few of his friends didn't believe in it and lost their lives. Oh, wow. That is so sad. But sadly, it's repeated again and again and again. I know people here who've lost their lives as a result. And we know of a couple of celebrities that have lost their lives because they also were conspiracy theory believing and didn't get it. And the one that comes to mind mostly is Meatloaf. That was just tragic. Get vaccinated, please. Get vaccinated and get your boosters if you can, because while it may not prevent you from getting it, it's going to make it a whole lot less horrible. Herman Cain, yes. Poor Herman. Went to the rally and caught COVID after everybody was warning them that was going to be what would happen at the rally. It was going to be a COVID super spreader event. And of course, nobody listens to anybody anymore. It was pretty terrible. Hey, Celine. There was a statement on the website for Clorox telling people not to ingest it, no matter what Donald Trump said. Chava, man, I don't know if you saw Randy Rainbow's video on that. It was pretty damn funny. And he had blinking disclaimers about not ingesting any type of cleaner at all. And that's pretty bad. Celine, I wanted to mention that, and I forgot earlier. Lori Alexander makes weight loss and weight maintenance a morality issue. She says it has to do with your faith in Jesus. If you're a good Christian, submitting, cheerful wife, you will keep your weight at the same as it was when you were in high school. And that is not even close to what you should be doing. You should be doing what you and your doctor have agreed upon. And sometimes doctors are kind of buttholes about that too. We had a church in Georgia, and like 70 people got it. They pressed charges on them, but haven't been to court yet. I'm curious to see how those are going to play out. What gets me is people reveling in their willful ignorance of established science. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get denying science. I was a size 0 in high school. No, thank you. I didn't want to be that tiny. I was so sick. You had a friend in Way Down. Way Down, like I said, it had its good points, but it also had a whole lot of bad theology wrapped up in that I didn't necessarily agree with even then. There's some good tips there. I'm tempted to go through my old Way Down workshop book and write down the good ones and put them out there, but I don't want Gwen Shamblin, Laura's estate to sue me. I think the concept of waiting until marriage is awesome, but you should do it out of reasons that don't involve shame or fear of God not loving you. That's exactly how it should be for all of that. And Lori likes to link all that stuff. We're supposed to weight shame, but we can't shame somebody that weighs their own excrement every day, who rubs themselves down with beef tallow and doesn't bathe but once a week. We can't say anything about that, which to me seems a lot more abnormal than being overweight. I've seen people who denied C19 and I'm dying from it. Yeah. No church or gathering. Figure God made me the way I am, fat and sassy. Karma Lou. It's kind of how I'm feeling. I know that because of my great grandmother, my weight is always going to try to go to about where I am now. That was her weight. I think it's a genetic thing. And I don't worry about it anymore. I've just been through the ringer and with the churches and the weight loss thing, and I'm not doing that ever again. Use your Aussie swear words. Yes, that Amber chick, you didn't know that about her? She weighs her own excrement. She said it one time on her blog. It's since been pulled down, but she did say it. And to me, that says eating disorder. The people I know that do that, they have that. Celine, you're probably right about that. I know a lot of them are very prejudiced. Gwen was causing people to have eating disorders. Absolutely. Gwen herself had one. All you had to do was look at the stick figure she was at the end with the crazy pile of hair, and you know it wasn't normal. Something weird was going on in that brain. I hope KJ doesn't do that. Yeah, that would be kind of weird. The Bible even states that you don't need a church to acknowledge and pray to God. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it states that, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry that Amber chick. I am so sorry that you had to know that. That's what kills me when Lori starts throwing rocks at other people over sins. And then I'm like, girl, you rub yourself with beef fat and you don't shower or bathe but once a week. And I'm like, super horrified. I don't wash my hair but maybe once a week. But a shower? Oh my goodness. I think about my infectious disease doctor treating me for MRSA and what she would say about the multiplying organisms on Lori's skin. That is a real good way to get and maintain MRSA, is to not bathe enough. And it just blows my mind to this day. I tried the Slim Fat weight loss help. Did it? It didn't do anything for me, but made me want to eat more stuff. It just depends. Yeah, you shouldn't publicly pray. There's all sorts of things in there that are completely different. The chunk of love. No, Java Man, we are not talking about her. We're talking about Lori Alexander. Lori Alexander is the one that never bathes, that uses beef tallow on her skin, and was weighing her excrement there for a while. Like I said, I don't know if she does it now, but she did say it on her blog at one point. I saw it. And Brittany, I can understand that. I had a struggle with that at one point too. I just wouldn't eat as a teen because I wanted to be a size 2 all the time. It didn't work out well for me. I couldn't maintain that. Even to this day, I have to eat. My body and my blood sugars tell me eat, eat, eat. If I take my blood sugar and it's 60, it's like, damn it, I'm having a cookie right now. So I think if you follow what they're saying in most of these churches and like Lori Alexander about these things, you're going to end up with an AD. I don't see any way around it. When focusing on food that severely, and I think that's a problem with diets too. I'm just going to throw that out there. This is a problem with dieting. Okay, this is why I prefer just to eat healthy and not worry about food. When you diet, I mean any kind of diet, Weight Watchers, whatever, you're focusing on the food and you're focusing on what you cannot have. You cannot successfully lose weight if you're completely focused on food and all you think about is food. It's like, I remember in the States, all the television ads for food, trying to get you to eat all these horrible for you things all the time. And yeah, Brittany, mine too. It's definitely not helped. So all this thinking about food all the time, thinking about what you can have, thinking about being deprived, thinking about going and licking lettuce leaves and having ice water. It just sets you up. It sets you up for failure, and it sets you up for an ED. It really does. And you really can't do all these crazy diets. I was doing keto hard for 3 months when I had my first stroke. I had TIA, a little tiny one. And when they took my blood cholesterol level, I had Crisco for blood. So I am one of those people they listed as stroke brought on by keto. And I learned my lesson. And that's when I started thinking it has to be just you eating normally. If you need to lose a little weight, you cut your portions back some, maybe eat a little more lettuce, but you don't obsess. You don't think about the food. You don't think about what you're missing. You don't beat yourself up if you fall off the wagon and have a candy bar. You don't do any of that. You just do what you can and you move a little more, and that's it. And if it doesn't make you lose weight, well, maybe your body is not meant for that. Right now, my husband is dieting really hard. If I hear one more 0-calorie food discovery, I'm going to cry and throw a cake at him. Oh, Lexi, that is hard. It's hard for me when he's dieting. It's harder than when he has a cold like he has now and he's pretty whiny. I don't know if I had long COVID complications or if it would have happened anyway, but I've had serious breathing issues since about 3 weeks after my first symptom back in Jan. Oh, you had emphysema. Oh, no goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Brenda Lee, that sounds like long COVID. That sounds like mast cell too. With Atkins diet, it was never a good sign when the creator of a diet keels over dead. Java man, that's true. That's very true. I tried keto once, and the first 5 days while I was detoxing from sugar were terrible. Yeah. And I remember those days. Sodas, yeah, that's a good thing. Like I said, I've had to cut mine way, way back. Even the diet ones, because they're not good for you. Yeah, I remember when Jimmy Fix died of a heart attack, and that kind of tells you something. The Bible, if you read it especially, it seems like they are more of a take the middle way. And I think you have to approach weight loss that way as well. Whereas in the church, it's all this pressure to be the size 2, be gorgeous, be attractive, but don't be too attractive. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go. I can't believe I've talked this long without my asthma going nuts. Hey, back on the books. I'm sorry, I'm going. Y'all have a really blessed day. And maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe I won't. I don't know. Depends upon how life unfolds. Take care.